Hello and welcome to Amrita by the Book. My name is Amrita. This is my booktube, and today I am really excited to be talking about 5 books that I think would make great musicals. Now, credit where it is due, and I feel like she might not actually want the credit, which fair. But still, I'm going to give it to her because Charlotte over at Coney Reads had this video up, to celebrate her 1-year anniversary on BookTube. And she did a Q&A, and somebody in the Q&A asked her, what book she thought would make a great musical because she's a big musical theater fan. And she was like, I'm going to throw it open to people in the comments below to come up with their own ideas. And I immediately knew which book would make a great play, and it's Twilight. Let me explain. So here's the thing about Twilight. It is a very classic love triangle, which is something that works really well when adapted to stage because it gives you so many opportunities to have these grand, emotional, angst-ridden moments. And then you have the insurmountable obstacles in their path. One of them is a human, the other 2 are a vampire and a werewolf. And the great thing about them being vampires and werewolves is that the vampire part, it's literally, you can put on prosthetics. They're like the easiest prosthetics. The sparkle effect is very easy to do on stage. You just need to do like a couple of filters on spotlights maybe. And also for the werewolf, sure, you do need to transform at some moment, but if you've ever been to like The Lion King, for example, then it's very easy to put on like an animal outfit and still have the person in there. The stage is very forgiving in that way. I mean, you could go completely avant-garde with this, right? And think of all the angst, there are going to be musical drama teens who are going to be singing the songs from this, if it's good, for like decades and generations. There is Bella with her self-doubt and her sadness that she is going to grow old while Edward, beautiful Edward, will always be the same. And then there is Edward singing about how he will choose death over a life without her. There is Jacob with his rage at what is happening to Bella and his inability to stop it. And the best thing about a play is that you can absolutely pick and choose from your adapted source material. Unlike films, like in films, people get really mad if you're missing significant, bits of plot or if you change dramatically from the source material. But in plays, you can actually go really loose with your idea of what an adaptation should do. So you can actually jettison that entire plot point where Jacob ends up with this creepy half vampire, half human baby. And instead, he can have the heroic death fighting all the vampires out to murder Bella at the end of it. Like, if you look at it narratively, Twilight needed someone to sacrifice themselves, and the logical person was Jacob because Bella just wasn't in love with him. So, Jacob needed to make that grand gesture and lose his life. But, Stephenie Meyer is basically chicken shit when it comes to things like that, and she wanted everyone to find their happily ever after, and therefore gave Jacob this weird science experiment and turned him into this quasi-pedophile in the process, and it was bad, you guys. But Twilight the Musical would be a chance for everybody to redeem themselves. Please tell me that you see what I'm getting at. The sheer potential for this. And the best part about Twilight the Musical is that it would basically sell itself. Like a lot of plays, the big issue is what will bring people to the theater. That's why Broadway, for example, keeps hiring all these movie stars, who might not be the best fit for the play, but they get those people there because people will pay to see them in person. And the thing with Twilight is that it has such a dedicated fan base that they will absolutely want to watch Twilight the Musical. It could be one of those Mamma Mia events, where like mothers and daughters go out to watch it together. A little weird, but okay, $1 is $1. So as you can see, I do have proper ideas about what would make a book into a good musical drama. And so you can put down your pitchforks and just listen to the rest of this video, because I have a few more ideas about books that haven't been made into plays because they're not traditional musical drama kind of stories, but I think would do amazingly well. My next book that should be made into a musical is Dune. And I know that there will be a section of the fantasy audience that are like, how dare you? But hear me out. First of all, I'm not the first one that came up with this idea. There was some kind of drama collective group comedy thing. I don't know what it was, but they were going to adapt Dune for a panto in Edinburgh. I don't know if it worked out because I'm a millennial, and if my Google search doesn't tell me what the answer is within like 0.5 seconds, I can't be bothered to do any more research. So I don't know if they actually did it. Now the thing is, I don't think it should be a panto necessarily. Your true blue fantasy fan would be a lock for this. Have you ever met a Lord of the Rings fan, like a real deep Lord of the Rings fan? They know all the words to all the songs. Those of you who've only watched the movie are probably sitting there thinking, songs? What songs? Aha, wait until you read the books. But also imagine all the possibilities for set design. Like somebody should hire David Lynch, and then they should really just work with him and talk about like how they will design all the desert sequences and stuff. I mean, it's probably going to be nightmare fuel, but it will be amazing nightmare fuel. Like you could make this into a production, you know, capital letter production. And again, you know, the possibilities for the songs, I mean, there are so many different intervals where, you know, like he finds out that his family's been murdered, he finds out that he's the Messiah, like there are all these different points, and I bet there are going to be so many teenage boys who will be so much into it. And again, this is a show that will sell itself. There'll be people who remember the book or remember the movie, and they'll want to come see how they've adapted it to stage. And then if you actually get David Lynch involved, then there'll be like Lynch fanboys in the audience. And of course, there will be all the fantasy nerds, you know, like this would be something that people would cosplay. This would be something that people would probably stage, you know, like I can see like street productions of this at various cons, for example. There's just so much potential in this idea. People should hire me for this stuff, really. I mean, some of you are probably laughing right now, but you wait. Somebody will see the genius and do it, and then they won't pay me for it, and then I'll say, ha, remember when? Okay, my next recommendation is Miss Marple. So you would take, say, 3 short stories in, you know, her universe, and then you would construct a 3-act play, and in each of the acts, Miss Marple solves a murder. And she goes through the usual rigmarole of, you know, being underestimated and ignored and still managing to solve it and impressing people. And then in the last, you know, like you go through each of the acts with Miss Marple being like this little old lady, and she sings the song at the very end when she's solved the 3rd and final murder. And she starts off the song as this little tiny lady in a spotlight, and she's just like, why can I get no respect? Why is it that people don't listen to me? I'm so tired of watching people behave so badly. Why must people murder? Like the usual kinds of sentiments that we see in the Miss Marple adaptations. But then the song changes, and she gets accompanied by this booming orchestra and this, you know, like a cast in the background, and everybody is singing about how Miss Marple is a bad bitch. You can imagine that, right? Like, so in the 1st act, you'll have this murder. 2nd act, you have this murder. 3rd act, you have this murder. And then in the last, she's just like, yep, I told you I knew what I was doing. Not only is that like a happy ending, but also, can you imagine all the older actresses in like summer stock productions across the world who would just die to play that role. And the great thing about having those 3 different murders is that because the main attention will be on the murder taking place, you can have Miss Marple in the background without like having too many lines, except to come in at the end and be like, oh yeah, like this person is the murderer and this is why, and then everybody just going like, what? And then at the end, of course, she's just like, yeah, maybe you should all talk less and pay attention more, like me. Murder and music. 2 great tastes that go together. My next recommendation is The Very Hungry Caterpillar. And before you have a fit, hear me out. First of all, I don't know why this isn't a giant musical hit already, because everybody knows the source material, all the kids know it by heart, so obviously you should do like a kiddie version for this, you know? And then adults will come because you know what? You cannot overestimate the adult desire for nostalgia. But think about it, because there aren't a lot of words, you can basically just make up all kinds of doggerel, really, that would be like really simple and easy for kids to learn. And then, you know, like it would be a huge success in every single elementary school across the world, because teachers, you know, they're forced to create things for kids all the time. So if you go up to an elementary school teacher and you're like, hey, here's this thing, do you want to do this for your kids? I mean, that would be the greatest gift. So kids are gonna love it, kids are gonna learn the songs, it's going to be a wild hit, and you could do like fancy versions of it. I mean, you can get those kids to the theater and they're gonna have such wonderful memories of it, and they're gonna grow up wanting to go to the theater. So basically, theater owners will be developing their future audience. Don't scoff at The Very Hungry Caterpillar. So I could do this all day, but I'm going to wind up this video with one last recommendation, and that is the Motorcycle Diaries, which I am shocked that nobody has yet adapted to stage. I mean, there was the movie and everything, but you know, a musical drama set in Latin America? Are you kidding me? Of course, there's going to be an audience for it. Can you imagine the music? They literally go through all these different cultures across South America. You could basically design an all-day event around the music alone. But also the journey that Che goes through within that book, and the things that he realizes, the people that he meets, the systems of oppression that he encounters. I mean, all of these are things that are still sadly valid today. And if you're telling me that you could make like really successful shows out of Evita and Rent and Hamilton, I mean, if you can make a very successful show about Alexander Hamilton, you 100% could make a very successful show about Che Guevara with Latin American sounds. This is such a no-brainer for me. And don't come at me with this whole like, well, Che was a problematic figure. Yeah, so he was, and so was Thomas Jefferson, who was a slave owner who repeatedly raped and impregnated his wife's teenage half-sister, who was also enslaved. And we literally present that story as a love story, or we did until a few years ago. So the story of Che finding out that there's inequality in the world and how people suffer, I mean, that's fine. Think of all those people in the world with those Che t-shirts, you know, like finally they'll find out who it is and what it means. It'll be so amazing for them. We'll be able to sing like really amazing songs at protest marches, like a full-on concert. It'll be amazing. Why are we being denied this opportunity? In conclusion, I don't know how many people out there are also musical theater nerds, but if you are, sound off in the comments below. Like, what do you think? Like, are these perfectly viable choices? And the answer is yes, by the way. But still, you know, I'm open to a civil discussion. If you think that I might be mistaken, fine, I think you're wrong, but go ahead, tell me how. Also, what are some books that you would like to see adapted to stage? It does need to be a musical though. Like, I want to know what books you would adapt to musical theater. For more videos, please hit the subscribe button.